Yet another incident of Khalistani terrorism has now emerged. We quickly saw in Italy that bust of Mahatma Gandhi, the statue that has been erected in Italy right ahead of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to the G7 host nation, has been desecrated by these pro-Khalistani elements. This is, like I said, not incidental. This has been orchestrated, keeping in mind that the Prime Minister's visit to Italy is scheduled for tomorrow, for the next 3 days. Now, there has been yet another incident that has been reported from Canada. There is a video of 2 Sikhs being harassed and abused by Khalistani extremists, which has gone viral. Just 2 days ago, there was a float celebrating the assassination of Indira Gandhi that was rallied around in Vancouver. The often repeated tepid reaction of the Canadian authorities that violence is never acceptable doesn't cut ice. This is not for the first time that such an incident has taken place. Now, to put things into perspective, I want you to imagine that a section of people, extremists, fanatics, whatever you may call them, parade in the streets of Delhi a float depicting the assassination of the former US President of United States of America, John F. Kennedy. Or there are a bunch of these pro-slavery, pro-confederacy extremists that parade around with a float depicting the assassination of the 16th President of America, Abraham Lincoln. Imagine if there were posters that came out in Delhi and Mumbai and all across the country threatening to kill the President of the United States of America, Joe Biden, and the Secretary of the State, Antony Blinken, and the Canadian Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. And every single time it happened, India would casually brush it aside with a lame response that violence is not acceptable and do little to actually root out some extremists and fanatics from its soil. Wouldn't this evoke global outrage? The Five Eyes, the MI6 and the CSIS would be gunning for India, and could there be a possibility that even a covert operation may be launched to neutralize such elements, and that could happen on our soil? Well, it's anybody's guess. The motive of the Canadians and the Americans and the British is clear. Continue to foment trouble in India by strengthening the Khalistani lobby in their countries and try every trick in the book to destabilize India. Because an unstable India cannot grow at an 8.4% growth rate. An unstable India cannot become a $10 trillion economy. Because an unstable India cannot become the third largest economy. And an unstable India will cease to be then a threat to the Western countries. Let's start off this conversation. Ambassador Mukherjee on the telecast with me. And Ambassador, a very unfortunate incident that has taken place. I was addressing this. There were visuals on our screens. Mahatma Gandhi's statue has been desecrated. It was erected just a few days ago. This was on the anvil of the Prime Minister visiting Italy for the G7 summit, and he was going to inaugurate the statue. And there are these pro-Khalistani elements that are behind this desecration. How shameful this is, but even more concerning is that such incidents used to take place earlier in Canada, in America, in UK, and now such an incident has been reported in Italy as well.
It is indeed shameful, but let me clarify that before a G7 summit happens anywhere in the world, there are millions of demonstrators who pour in from different parts of the world to demonstrate against various things, poverty, globalization, whatever. As in this particular case, when this fringe group found out that our PM is going to go there to attend the summit at the invitation of the chairman of the G7, they must have decided to do this because normally I have not heard of any person from this group desecrating a bust of the father of the Indian nation. This is a first for me. It's completely different from the float, the terrible float, disgraceful float showing the assassination of Mrs. Gandhi. So it's very curious that they have desecrated the bust of the father of the Indian nation. Secondly, I would like to point out that there is a difference between what's happening in Vancouver and the US attitude. Because what's happening in Vancouver is that because of domestic politics in Canada, a fringe element that has no hold here is trying to pressurize the Canadian Prime Minister into taking a position which is against Canada's short-term, medium-term, and long-term national interests vis-a-vis India. That's the first point. Secondly, we should not dignify these fringe marginal elements by giving them the same status as mainline Sikhs, which is clear from the fact that they are now attacking mainline Sikhs, who are a majority even in Vancouver, and who don't approve of such activities, who just want to go with the flow and go and become respectable Canadian citizens, which is why they have immigrated to Canada. Thirdly, Megha, and this is very important, that when you say that the West does not want India to be stable, that's really, I would say, taking it a bit too far. There are certain factions that you and I have discussed, George Soros, etc., who have a negative narrative and whose interest is to bring down a strong government in India, to have weak coalition governments, and to stop India's growth story. That may not necessarily be an aspiration shared by the American leadership or by the American people. It may not necessarily be shared by Broadstein's Canadian public opinion, but because the Canadian Prime Minister is being held hostage because of domestic politics, this is what is happening in Vancouver. Those are my preliminary comments.
Okay.
And I would be happy to come back. I'm trying to Google to see whether ever Khalistanis have defaced the bust of the father of the Indian nation. I can't find any online. So this must be a very, very desperate group that has done so. And I'm sure that when PM flies tomorrow, he will go with another bust and it will be inaugurated.
Okay. Harinder Sikka, I bring out this point of there are elements, actors and non-actors across the world who are trying to deliberately foment trouble in India to make India unstable. And of course, there are political compulsions for these countries, as Baswati Mukherjee rightly mentioned. In Canada, his political career is at stake, Justin Trudeau. The votes that are going to be garnered, financial support, other support that is going to be provided to Justin Trudeau to win the elections is immense. So that's about his career. Talking about what happened in the United Kingdom, where a leader of the opposition from United Kingdom has come out and said that there is going to be a probe that is going to be launched against the alleged involvement of the Prime Minister, the former Prime Minister of United Kingdom, in the assassination of Indira Gandhi and the Operation Blue Star that was conducted against the Sikhs, against the Sikh riots that happened against the Sikhs. There have been pictures that have been clicked by Jeremy Corbyn's brother, who's also part of the leftist government, the leftist parties in United Kingdom. He was seen getting clicked, going to rallies of these pro-Khalistanis in United Kingdom. Now in US, we've not really seen any sort of political lineage that has happened, allegiance that has happened of political parties thus far, but there have been a number of these incidents where there have been pro-Khalistani protests. Our consulates and high commissions have been attacked, our embassies have been attacked, there have been desecration of Mahatma's statues in America as well that has been witnessed.
Megha, first of all, I take a very serious objection when you call as anti-Sikh riots. It was not riots, it's carnage. Riots is always when there is a fight between two people, two companies, two groups. It was innocent, Sikhs killed. That injury is not going to heal in a hurry.
Yes.
Those living in Canada, they will never forget. Those living in India will never forget. But that still does not mean that Sikhs have become Khalistanis. Majority of them are Sikhs, not Khalistanis. I have repeatedly said this. Khalistanis are not Sikhs. Likewise, Sikhs are not Khalistanis. There's a campaign going on in Canada. Let me share this with you, which has shaken up a handful of Khalistanis and Trudeau, where the largest sect of Sikhs, both in Vancouver and Birmingham, they are sharing this to the people, to the Sikhs in general and Punjabis all round, that Guru Nanak, Guru Tegh Bahadur, or Guru Gobind Singh Ji, they never preached anything against Bharat or Hindustan. How Guru Nanak Ji spoke to God Almighty against Babar's attack on India, Khorasan Khasmana kiya, he said. Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji sacrificed himself but did not convert and saved the Kashmiri Pandits. Guru Gobind Singh Ji fought battles of sorts, no end, with Aurangzeb and his parties, and Banda Bahadur and so on and so forth. This Pakistan's recent incident of Kamran Akmal talking about Sikh Sardaron ke 12 baj gaye ya 12 baje kar do. This insult, this is not the only one who's handed it over to us. Javed Miadad also did this. This Dawood Ibrahim's so-called Samdhi. He's done it. And this message is going across to people from two Khalistanis so-called, who put their posters in Gurdwaras where they were supposed to be posters of Guru Nanak and Guru Gobind Singh Ji, that you are supporting Congress, wherein it was Nehru, Indira and Rajiv combined, which are responsible for close to 25 lakh Sikhs, 20 plus or 22 plus during partition, and so on and so forth. And then 1984 happened, and when Rajiv Gandhi says, when the big tree falls, and not a single, perpetrator or killer was ever touched. They're also being explained to people that what has Modi done to the Sikhs? Char Sahibzade's celebration or day for them, and he proudly wears turban.
Right.
He has done something which nobody has ever even thought of. Now, this part of the comparison has shaken up the Khalistanis, or if you're carrying this large cordon of milk, you need a drop of lemon, unfortunately, to spoil or entire thing, or the milk.
So the question is, how do we tackle this? Because, there are political leaders, political parties, particularly in Canada and UK, that are fanning the flames. So when you have when you have these floats of Indira Gandhi's assassination, and then you have these gunmen holding these guns and aiming at Indira Gandhi's statue, and this is a celebration that is taking place, and the float is being paraded across Vancouver, and this is, for example, not the first incident that has taken place. When the opposition leaders in the United Kingdom come out and say that they are going to hold a probe against Margaret Thatcher and find out if she had an involvement in Operation Blue Star. So how do we how do we tackle this, Dr. Chirayu Thakkar? How do we tackle this very sensitive issue?
Can I complete my response?
Harendra ji, I'll come back to you. I have to get other panelists also into the discussion. Dr. Chirayu Thakkar, yes, please make a point.
Megha, good afternoon, and thank you for having me on this very sensitive topic. I think I would like to take a step back from this smaller incidents which are symptomatic of a larger problem. The G7, the Anglosphere countries, or the countries where there is a considerable amount of Sikh diaspora, they are at a point where they are realizing what is the value of India as a partner. But and again, between countries, there are numerous issues. So gradually we are able to resolve the issues of the yesteryears. But this is one issue for which they have not yet made up their mind, or at least not have evolved a strategy on how to handle the issue of Khalistan. They know that every small incident is that happens on their soil, be it Australia, be it the UK, be it Canada, it is disproportionately played out in India. It irks the Indian government, it irks the Indian people, but they are still not able to figure out how to handle this, partly because there are and as we all know, there are contending views, there are contending issues, principles, and interest at play.
But are you saying disproportionately highlighted by the Indian government or Indian media. But why shouldn't they? Because when you have the Canadian Prime Minister attacking India and saying that we are not playing by the rules of law, there has been a death that has happened of a Khalistani terrorist, and the blame is being given to India. So why should we also not highlight the fact what is happening in their country? And why there is a complete silence of the government in stopping these actions and just coming out with tepid responses like violence is not acceptable? What more are you doing except for passing these comments and releasing these statements?
Yeah, so Megha, I was coming to that, and I think secessionism is something which if you are trying to be friendly with someone, this is one thing which you should not take lightly. This is not merely something minor. If it irks rightly so, because this is an issue of secessionism. Now the point is, at this stage, how do we resolve this? One thing which you have seen in the UK during the Rishi Sunak administration's tenure is that they were very keen when the vandalization of the British High Commission happened. I was there in the UK, and we have seen very closely that they acted, they shared intelligence, they shared the details of the people. Some of them were of Indian origin and had PIO as well. So the point is, when the UK realized that India is indispensable if we want to move ahead with FTA, if we want to leverage India's market, in that situation, they will come and take more care about our responsibilities. They'll be more receptive towards it. And I think moving ahead, our aggregate size, our leverage, as it will increase with the smaller countries, it will go ahead.
Okay.
And you see,
Okay, all right. Surinder Singh Lali ji, how do you respond to this? Two incidents that have happened. The Sikh family going about its business, was at a Gurdwara, and these pro-Khalistani protesters, I wouldn't call them protesters, these pro-Khalistani extremists are the ones who've come out, ghair out them, chanted slogans, abused them, harassed them. And on the other end, you also have just 2 days ago, Indira Gandhi's float once again being paraded around in Vancouver. Not the first time it has happened. Obviously, these stray incidents of violence, of desecration and vandalization of gurdwaras, of temples, now Mahatma Gandhi's statue. How do we tackle it?
Thank you, Megha. It's a pleasure and honor for me to be here. And instead of wearing my geopolitical turban today, I'm going to come as a humble student of Sikhism and keep it very apolitical, because there have been people who are far more distinguished than me and have commented on the political aspects of it. Guru Gobind Singh Sahib said, and I quote, that Manas ki jaat sabo ek pehchan byo. So, Megha, the only thing that I've learned amongst Sikhism and the values in the Guru Granth Sahib, our living Guru, is it allows us not to be just humble, but to be non-judgmental. So I'm going to try and be as non-judgmental I can today in this response of mine, because humanity, oneness, and universal brotherhood is what Sikhism, amongst many other things, stands for. And why do I say I want to be non-judgmental? There are two parties involved in the video that I saw, where one party is hurling abuses, some very unparliamentary choice of words at another party, where there are three generations. I mean, there is the grandfather, then the son, and the grandson. So I'm going to let the viewers decide, if we were to follow the values of Sikhism, which one is closer to the Granth? Which one is practicing what actually Sikhism stands for? And my humble submission is that whatever the viewers decide, I mean, the other party, who they feel is not, they could simply visit the Gurdwara next to them and study the Granth, because what they're doing is against the values of Sikhism. That's one. And number two is, the brief that I got from your channel, it says patriotic Sikh. Megha, you could have used any one of the words, it will still mean the same, because Sikhs are meant to be patriotic. I mean, I've yet to know somebody who follows Sikh religion and is not patriotic, because again, Guru Granth Sahib, Guru Gobind Singh Sahib said, Deva Shiva Barmohe, which loosely translated into English, it means, dear God, grant my request so that I can never deviate from doing good deeds, that I shall have no fear of the enemy when I go into the battle, and with determination that I'll be victorious. So if you just use the word Sikh, it automatically is on default settings and it will say we are patriotic. And the other thing is,
I mean, obviously, every single Indian is patriotic, and those who are not are extremists, are ones who are trying to foment trouble, are ones which are anti-India and anti-national interests.
Megha, forgive me for my ignorance. With all humility, I cannot comment on every Indian, and yet I feel, because I know very little about Sikhism, so I'm not going to exceed my brief, or as they say in America, go beyond my pay grade and make a sweeping remark on other religions. And the other one is the K element. I still refrain from using the word K because, as Ambassador Mukherjee and Mr. Sikha said, I don't even want to dignify these people. At best, I have two words I would love to use for them in the future is activist extremist or fanatic extremist. That's all I want to limit these, the fringe rogue elements which in the West are best pushed for their political agenda under the bogey of free speech.
Okay, Ambassador Mukherjee, then, again the question, a sensitive issue, it has been politicized in certain countries. In fact, there have been some the elections that have taken place, and there are members of parliament who have a very extremist view. There is a terrorist who has been charged under the UAPA. He is behind bars. He has pro-Khalistani views. He has been elected. There is, in fact, another individual who has been picked in Punjab. He's become member of parliament, and he has extremely pro-Khalistani views. How do we ensure that there is peace, tranquility that is maintained in Punjab and in the country amidst all these unfortunate, shameful activities that are taking place, also perturbing the nation, and also ensuring this secessionist chants and propaganda of these few individuals, few terrorists, does not foment trouble in the country?
First of all, I would like to agree with Mr. Lali Singh that in my perspective, every Sikh is a patriot. I don't know about other Indians, and I'm not a Sikh. The second is, I agree with Mr. Sikha that what happened in '84 was a shameful blot on the soul of the nation because it was carnage, and I'm very proud that I'm a Bengali and not a single Sikh was touched in Bengal. So these were political things which we have moved on. India has moved on. Now, you are talking about what happens if an extremist gets elected to the Indian parliament. The answer is very simple, Megha. It has happened earlier also. Ex-Khalistanis have got elected to the Indian parliament. When you get elected to the Indian parliament, you have to swear by the Indian constitution. You must have seen the swearing in ceremony. You have to swear by the integrity, territorial integrity, and the constitution. If you're not willing to do that, then your election gets cancelled. So if somebody is sitting in some jail for terrorist activities and he's got elected, then he will have to swear by the Indian constitution to take his seat. It's as simple as that. And after '84, there were several such people, including someone whose name I will not take, who defected in Norway. He was from the Foreign Service, who then became elected as an Akali Dal MP. His younger stepbrother was my batchmate in the Foreign Service. Okay, so these things happen. It could mean that eventually such a person who has extremist views, once he gets elected and swears by the Indian Constitution, he may change his perspective. So it doesn't bother me at all that they've got elected. I would be much more distressed if a convicted felon in the United States gets elected as president of the United States. That's much greater concern, in fact, to the Americans, not to me. Is their problem.
Okay.
So my view here is, Megha, that we should be clear that these K elements, as Mr. Lali Singh says, I agree with him, these are not Sikhs. They are against the Sikh religion because all Sikhs are patriots and they will be disposed of sooner rather than later. Okay. And if one or two of them get elected to parliament, let's see them on television, Megha, swearing by the Indian Constitution. Then you and I will decide.
Okay, Harinder Sikha ji, now an interesting point mentioned by Ambassador Mukherjee, and I want to focus on this because there are a certain percentage of the people in the regions where these candidates had contested, were fielded from, they were independent candidates, they won the election. So there is a certain percentage of the people who have voted for these people to make them MPs, to represent them in the parliament, which means that the sentiment and the ideology of these two individuals is then reflecting the ideologies and sentiment of the people on the ground who have voted for them.
One, what happens is, no, I'm not on mute.
Yes,
Can you hear me?
Harinderji, please make your point.
Okay. What Ambassador Mukherjee has said, she's on this spot, on more than one counts. In fact, everything what she has said, that Sikhs are patriots. Want to believe it further? Just go and see Kala Pani. And you will find that slates after slates filled with Bengalis and Sikhs. British has wanted to get rid of them from the.
I'm saying there is no question, there is no contention of whether Sikh is patriot. Why are we having a discussion? Why, if a Sikh is a patriot? That's not the question. I think that's something that has been proven time and again for centuries together in the past. If you have to take a look at history and even in current times, so that's not even a contention. That's not even a question. The question is about how there are a small percentage of extremists who have the tendencies and ideologies and sentiments that are not in favor of the country, whether they are sitting out of Canada, UK, America, Australia, or out of Punjab or rest of the country.
Megha, this word, first of all, come back to Khalistan, what Mr. Lali says. Can you hear me or not?
I can hear you, sir.
So, the word Khalistan means pure. They're not pure. He's right in his this fanatic, so whatever he's calling them, 100%. Now, what happened in Punjab? Farmers are not so educated, and they go with the wave. And the entire wave is one side, and the word spreads, and that vote for him, and he's been or dishonored or this that.
See, there is a problem with your audio. I would request you to join me again. We're not able to hear you clearly. I have very little time, so Dr. Thakkar, I'll come to you and your response. The same question that I'd posed to Harinder Sikkaji.
Megha, I couldn't follow the question because there was some audio issue. But I would like to finish the point that I was raising earlier. There are three things which we should focus if we really want to attend the root cause of it. The first thing is Pakistan's role, which is always ignored in this discussion. It is the epicenter of this business, funding through the problem that it's creating in Punjab. That's one aspect of it. Second, we have to seriously raise this issue with all G7 countries and countries of the Anglosphere, that there are limits to which, as a political philosophy, it can survive, but when it turns violent, when it celebrates the assassination of a head of a state or government, that is not acceptable. And this is one thing which irks India. They have to take into account our concern and our sensibilities. And if you look at PM's response to Trudeau, we have mentioned that, and that line should be firmly held.
Okay, all right. Quickly. Okay. Yes, Surinder Laliji, quickly, 30 seconds before I wrap this up.
Megha, I want you to go after the broader gist of what I'm going to tell you next. It could be anecdotal, so I don't want to stick my neck out. But somewhere in the hinterland of India, there was an Hindi examination and a small child was asked, what is the contribution of Sikhs in India? And all she wrote was, had it not been for the Sikhs, I would have been answering this question in Urdu and not in Hindi. Thank you, Megha. God bless you.
Absolutely.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.